So today we are going to be talking about soil. So soil is made up of crumbling rock or sand, clay, dead plant and animal remains, fungi, and even manure. And soil has many different purposes, really important purposes. So it provides anchorage for the soil. So it's a place where plants, or it provides anchorage for plants. So plants use their roots to anchor in the soil, and you can see here on the top level of this photo that it's doing that. And then it provides habitat for fungi, bacteria, and other small organisms. So you can see in the photo this little worm, little earthworm crawling through there. It provides nutrients and it holds nutrients for plants. It has water for plants as well. The space between the particles of soil have oxygen that the plants can use to break down sugar and make energy. And the soil recycles raw material and filters water. So if you see in this photo at the bottom, this groundwater, water trickles down from the very top down through all the layers getting filtered until it kind of pulls up in spaces wherever it can. And that's actually where we get our drinking water in South Florida. So underneath us, underneath all of our layers of soil, which are kind of shallow, we have limestone rock, and water collects in this very porous limestone rock, and that's where we get our water to drink. And what's really cool is that soil is alive. So usually we think of soil or dirt as just, something that's just there. But there are more microorganisms in a teaspoon of healthy soil than there are people on Earth. So just a tiny little teaspoon. And something else really cool is that communities of trees and plants are interconnected by these underground networks of mycorrhizae. So it's a fungi that lives inside and around the plant roots. And this fungi can transfer water and nutrients between plants. And actually, trees and plants use this fungi to send signals to each other. So it's like they communicate. And for everyone that's here, have you seen anything interesting living in the soil before? Does anyone want to share? I know I've seen snails, worms, beetles, all types of bugs.
I think Lake Stevens has seen, didn't you find eggs one time? They had lizard or iguana eggs they found in their soil.
Scary eggs, and it just so happened they were moving, and we didn't know what they were. We thought they were snake eggs at first, but then Mr. Sam came and he took them away for us.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they were pretty big.
Really? How big with your hands?
It was a bunch of them, and can you see me? Because I'm on my phone.
Yeah, I can see.
About like this size, and it was a bunch of them in this, area, and every so often you see them just start moving, and I was done.
Oh, that's so weird. That's interesting.
Yep.
Very cool. So these are some animals that live in the soil.
It's on our Lake Stevens
Instagram.
On the, what do you call it? The page that they made, the social media page that we have for the Lake Stevens Food Forest. There's a picture of Mr. Sam with the eggs, so you can see them.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. Thank you.
Right.
So some animals that live in soil that we've all probably seen are earthworms, centipedes, and millipedes. And together, these organisms help break down organic matter, adding a lot of nutrients to the soil. So they're very important. And Debbie, I haven't heard this before, but yesterday Barbara was telling me that centipedes bite. Is that true?
I believe they can, yeah. And then the millipedes, The brown ones are native and the red ones are invasive and they're not native.
Oh.
So it's something, it's kind of interesting when you actually start paying attention to the millipedes and seeing
Yeah.
ones, because the red ones, a lot of times you see crawling up the walls because they're invasive.
Yeah. Wow. Very interesting. So something that students can do at home with the soil in your garden bags is to test it and observe it. So see if you can find anything living in the soil. You can test the moisture of your soil. Does it feel moist or dry? What color is it? Is it sandy or muddy? Are there lots of rocks in it? Just different things that you can observe to see how healthy your soil is and what's going on with it. So typically our plants like to have moist soil for the most part, being watered pretty regularly. And they like soil that isn't very sandy. There needs to be a good mix of nutrients. So usually darker soil that doesn't just feel like sand from the beach is what you're looking for. And back to how soil recycles nutrients or recycles organic matter into nutrients, there's something called composting where you can decompose organic materials like vegetable scraps and it turns into rich nutrients that can be added to your soil to feed your plants. So in this photo, we see kind of like a cycle of that, or in both photos, really. You can turn all your food waste, instead of throwing it in the garbage and sending it to a landfill, you can make it useful and almost use it as fertilizer. So it's really easy at home to make your own compost bin. And in the schools, we use banana circles where we throw organic matter in the middle and it breaks down and feeds the bananas. But if you don't have a banana circle at home, you can use just a regular storage bin and a drill and drill holes all throughout the top and all the sides and especially the bottom so that water can drain through. You can add some soil already to the bottom and then add your vegetable and fruit scraps on top. And it's really important not to add anything cooked, not to add any meat or bread. You just want to stick to vegetables and fruits, that type of waste, and keep the contents of your bin moist. So sometimes if you need to, adding some water and mixing it up. And over time, the scraps are going to decompose into rich, fertile soil for your plants. So it's a really easy, DIY way of diverting your waste away from the landfill and using it for a new purpose. And just like the soil can recycle organic matter, we can recycle things that we use too. But obviously, this is a little different. So we all have this blue bin here in Miami-Dade, our recycling bin. And what happens in recycling, again, instead of things being sent to the landfill where they just get buried underground kind of forever, depending on what it is, it can be turned into new things that we can use again. So things that we can recycle here in Miami-Dade are paper, so clean and dry paper, the word got erased, but clean and dry paper, like newspaper, magazines, any regular printer paper is recyclable, cardboard, specifically not pizza boxes. They don't want pizza boxes. So packing boxes, cereal boxes, any type of box that doesn't have food on it, really. Cans, so steel and aluminum, food and beverage cans, cartons, like drink boxes and juice cartons or milk cartons, and bottles, and plastic and glass bottles. So something really important in Miami-Dade, they only recycle narrow neck plastic bottles. So any container, like a strawberry container, plastic container, or oddly shaped plastic containers are not recyclable. And that's a big confusion, I think, in Miami-Dade that people don't know. So it's really important to be aware. And for these bottles, they want you to remove the caps off of it as well, because those are not recyclable. So pizza boxes, dirty food containers, plastic containers that are not narrow neck bottles, and styrofoam are not recyclable. And plastic bags are recyclable only if you take them to your grocery store. So these are really important facts, because if we all can, follow these recycling rules, then it's easier for the people doing the recycling to do that for us, because they don't have to sort out all the different things. And so here's just a review of things that we can recycle: the paper, the cardboard, the bottles, the cans, and then on the bottom is what we can't recycle. So there's styrofoam, plastic utensils, wire hangers, plastic cups and bags. Those things, they don't go in our bin.
I'm sorry, I had a quick question. You said that
Of
they don't use
course.
the irregular shaped containers. So like say those egg containers, the plastic ones, they don't recycle those?
No.
Okay, because we've always been putting those to recycle because we figured.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. They only want the narrow neck bottles.
So I guess those just get thrown away?
Yeah,
I
I
didn't
know.
either.
Yeah, when I found that out, years ago, I was very surprised, but yeah. And you can also look it up. If you look up Miami-Dade Recycling, it has all of that's where I got all of these rules from. So yeah, if you want to take a look at that too, it'll kind of inform us more. I'm sorry about the containers. So can anybody tell me what the 3 R's are? Has anybody heard of the 3 R's?
Reduce, reuse, recycle.
Yes, exactly. So these are 3 ways that we can reduce the amount of waste that we produce. And it's just a different way of living, rather than always just using single-use things that you use one time and throw away. So in reducing, you lower the amount of things you use. You don't buy things that you necessarily don't need, or use things that you don't really need. So becoming more mindful of the decisions that you make day-to-day life. And then reusing is using what you have used again if you can. So reusing plastic bags for different reasons, or reusing paper. You can write on the front, then you write on the back too. Little things like that make a big difference. And then of course, what we just talked about, recycling. So you send what you have used to be recycled so that it can be made into a completely new product, but it is being used again. So the 3 R's are super important in our environmental awareness, and environmental friendliness. And here is a shout out to one of our home garden superstars, Diela's Gary. There's a picture of her measuring her plants in the beginning, and then she eventually added her plants in the ground, and they are all thriving. So that is really nice to see.
I think she
And
grew.
what was that?
I think she grew taller as well.
Yeah, I think so. Definitely. And that's all. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Was there anything surprising to you in this presentation other than the egg cartons not being recyclable? To me, the fact that soil is so alive and has so many things that we can't see going on in it is really interesting.
It surprises me that there's so many things that are not recyclable.
Yeah, agreed. I'm not really sure why this is. Some places have more, I guess, developed recycling systems, but it is the case for Miami-Dade. And it's really important that people know um, these rules just to make the recycling system more effective um, for us. I've heard places like Portland, like they're very, in Oregon, they're very on top of the recycling. Like everywhere you go, there's like 5 different bins for all types of materials, but we haven't reached that level yet. Yeah, but it still makes a difference. Even what we can recycle is really important that we do, but it is surprising. And one last thing I want to share that was interesting to me about um, this mycorrhizae fungi between plants. This was a few years ago. I heard of an experiment done with trees that were close together, the same type of tree. They exposed one tree to some type of gas or element. Maybe it was like phosphorus. I can't really remember, but they exposed this tree to this element and not the others. But when they tested the other trees, they also had the same element within them. And the scientists discovered like it was transferred from that one plant to all the other ones. So it's really interesting that the plants are in this community, and they're communicating with each other, and they're not just there. Like there's so much happening above ground and underground. And I read when I was reading yesterday, they described it kind of like the internet of plants underground. So that I think is really cool.
That's very interesting. We have in our backyard a bunch of different palm trees lining the fence, and we had to dig out a hole to put in an above ground pool. And when they were digging it out, we could see the roots from all these trees were interconnected all the way across. Like it was crazy the amount of
Wow.
roots that we had underground.
Yeah, that is so cool.
I like to think of it as they're all holding hands underground. They're all kind of connected, like they're all holding hands together.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Well, yeah. So if anybody doesn't have any questions, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you,
It
Miss
was a
Sophia. I'm
pleasure.
I'm so sorry the other ones didn't show up. How many? We have another one in May, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to push my 4th graders to really be here this time. Sometimes it's hard to get them to come to regular school, so I understand what's happening on Saturdays, but
Yeah.
they should be here. So I'll talk to them.
Absolutely.
One quick thing. Our sasso spinach hasn't been handling the heat very well. So it's I don't know if it's just that particular plant or us. Are we able to get like another one of that particular one, or
You know what, with the CISO, a lot of times it's been very dry. And once the rain picks up and the humidity starts to pick up, it should
come back in?
It should come back in. If you notice a lot of holes on it, that sometimes the snails like the CISO. So if there's like a lot of little teensy tiny holes on it, you can get some diatomaceous earth to sprinkle around it to discourage the snails from trying to get on the plant. But it should perk back up once the
rainy season comes in.
Yeah, and it propagates really easy. So that's another thing.
Okay.
looking a little, maybe start propagating some of them. And once it does start raining regularly, just stick them back in the ground and all over the place again soon.
Okay, yeah, because it was the past, let's say, month, it's been struggling a little bit.
Yeah, mine too. It
Okay,
doesn't
as long as I was normal.
rain.
Okay.
What about the basil? I've noticed that mine has kind of like dried out, and it had flowers, a lot of flowers, and then it kind of just withered away.
The basil too. The basil, it's really dry right now for the basil, but the basil that the African blue basil is actually a mule. It's a hybrid between two different kinds of basils. And you can, again, take a little cutting of it, stick it in the soil or stick it in some water and root it. And then I would stick, I just did it the other day with my basil. So I started a bunch of new plants, and I just I cut them and I stuck them in the soil all around the base of the original basil plant, and it'll start a whole bunch of new plants.
Oh, okay. I'll try that.
These plants want to survive. So but
Yeah, no, all of our
a
plants
life
are doing
cycle.
all of our plants are doing really well. It's just the basil is the only one that I noticed was kind of drying out and not as healthy as the other ones.
Yeah, the basil, it just has about a year life cycle, but like I said, it propagates really, really easily. So yeah, if you just take like little cuttings, about 1-inch cuttings of it, and just stick it in the soil around, it should start a whole bunch of new plants, because we're getting into rainy season, so it will be raining shortly on a regular basis, and the humidity will be back. They actually, these particular plants don't like the dry weather, and we may like it, but the plants aren't as happy with the dry weather.
Mm-hmm. So Debbie, do you think that May is going to be our last workshop?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So I am recording this. We can send it out to anybody that did not attend the workshop.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know everybody's schedules are kind of crazy right now. And but
Yeah.
we can try to get more on the final workshop. We
Yeah.
have a little fun closing out of the year.
Yeah, Ms. Gann, we'll make it big. See.
Awesome. I don't think we need to take any more time out of everybody's Saturday.
Thank you all so much. I hope you
Thank
enjoyed
you.
learning.
Bye.
Thank you. I
Bye,
appreciate
guys.
it. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you. Send us some pictures.